Welcome to the October 22nd, 2019 episode of Reactive Consciousness, our in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And Fakafon.
All right,
Welcome
so
back.
this week we actually... Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah, this is good. We could say this is the drawing of the three now.
Wow.
Because you really could draw the three.
Oof.
I know I can draw.
Not with your mouse the way it is tonight.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck is going on with it. It's annoying.
But that was a reference to Dark Tower for all of you nerdos out there.
Oh,
But I am actually pretty excited for some more Stephen King goodness. He's getting a lot of attention in the cinema lately. They have Dr. Sleep coming pretty soon. So
How come?
How come?
Yeah, how come now more attention than before?
Well, I think it was really good. So there's renewed interest, but there was a little bit of renewed interest before that. There was Dark Tower, which wasn't good, but it still got him into the collective consciousness, corrective consciousness. I'm sorry. But no, he also had a few other TV shows and stuff that have been pretty reasonable. What is it? Castle Rock was a pretty popular show, and a couple other things. So
Castle Rock is clearly a ripoff of Lord of the Flies.
No, it's clearly a ripoff of the ending of every Seinfeld episode where it says Castle Rock. Because that's the production company that Carl Reiner founded after he made Stand By Me, which isn't related to Stephen King at all.
I can't believe that Seinfeld ripped off of Lord of the Flies.
And right back into the war we go. Okay. So anyway, we're all savages, every single one of us. Anyway, I did want to get going here because there were some pretty significant retro-y kind of stuff going on, and also some significant rumors this week, and I did want to have a decent discussion here. But just probably the biggest news is that the Analogue Pocket was announced. Did you guys check this out?
No, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, well, the Analogue is the company that made the the Super NT, where it's basically a Super Nintendo with HDMI out that upscales and...
Oh yeah, I think we talked about that last week, right?
Yeah, exactly, the Mega SG. Well, they were releasing a Pocket system, and Vice was trying to speculate on what that could be. Obviously Game Boy something, but that seems kind of redundant. Well, it turns out that it can accept Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games like we expected, but then it kind of blindsided everybody. It could take Game Gear games, which is not with an adapter. And that's not outrageous. The Mega SG is supposed to get an adapter for that too.
Sure.
But that's still
Also, the Analogue NT Mini has with the jailbroken firmware can do that as well.
That's true, but I mean officially, because if you want to talk about jailbroken firmware, then the Nintendo Wii can play N64 games. The
jailbroken firmware for this compared to for these products compared to the jailbroken firmware for anything else is a completely different story, because the jailbroken firmware for analog systems has FPGA cores, which they're basically like a copy of the original hardware.
No, that's fair, but I mean speaking of strictly above board stuff though,
sure.
What you're what store customers are supposed to be able to play on this thing. We got the Game Boy stuff, we got the Game Gear, but then out of nowhere, two systems.
This is the big news.
Yeah, I don't know what's weirder: the Atari Lynx, the handheld, or the Neo Geo Pocket Color. It's bizarre.
That is actually what sold me on this. So, the Neo Geo Pocket Color is one of my favorite systems of all time. I would rate it up there along with the Dreamcast as one of the best systems that failed. It's a really good system, especially if you like 2D fighters. It has some of the most fun. Yeah, but it's even more fun than most of their games to begin with. Their games are great normally, but like the pocket versions were so accessible. They were so much fun.
They even
and
had one of those card fighters.
Yeah, it also had heavy support from Capcom, as I was going to mention. There's also like 3 or 4 really good RPGs on there. Like not just like mediocre or whatever. They're actually like really good.
Yeah, wake me when they can also support the N-Gage. I want to get the complete Elder Scrolls collection.
Actually, technically, a Java emulator can replicate that.
That's kind of funny. But anyway, regarding the Neo Geo, regarding the Analog Pocket, the thing with it is actually a handheld console. So it's like what Vice had thought of last time, but apparently there's also going to be a dock, which I think will be sold separately, so you can kind of Nintendo Switch it. It can hook up to your TV, which is pretty cool.
It can also take external wired controllers as a result as well.
It's amazing.
So this will be the first time that super accurate representation of the Neo Geo Pocket Color has had any sort of video out.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal. Probably one of the best fighting games of all time, which is SNK versus Capcom Match of the Millennium. Was
it Mark or Matt? Well, Mark. Oh,
Match of the Millennium.
Yeah. The second one was Mark of the Millennium 2001.
Yeah, so this is a unique game. It's not the same as the other SNK versus Capcom games. It's a unique game with chibi like SD style graphics, but it has a ton of content in it. It's not just a fighting game. Like it has a whole bunch of mini games and stuff. Like there's a DDR style game with Felicia from Darkstalkers in it. There's like a really cool, like almost like Game & Watch style game with Arthur and Red Arimer in it.
Oh, dude, nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun from Ghosts and Goblins. There's just so much cool stuff in there. There's like even like a Target thing, I think, that's Metal Slug themed. There's a whole bunch of really cool content in that game, and on top of it, it's one of the best fighting games I've ever played. It's actually the fighting game that got me into fighting games. So before that, I had really, before playing that, I had only a passing interest in fighting games, and this game turned me on to fighting games. So
for me, it was probably like Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3.
Oh,
or
that's a good one.
If not that, because I was like, I like Mortal Kombat, but I think what awakened me to like the broader fighting game universe probably was Capcom versus SNK 2, because I didn't know who a bunch of the Capcom fighters were, and I didn't know who almost any of the SNK characters were, but my friends did, so that got me interested in those franchises.
Also, the Neo Geo Pocket Color only has had a backlighting mod for only about like a month or two. So for the longest time, you could only really play it in its original form, which is inconvenient these days. Also, the screen they put in this is something like 10 times the original Game Boy's
it was precisely
resolution.
10 times. What was it, like 1,440 something?
Yeah, very very well enough to replicate any of the systems that are going to be on it. It's going to have video out, of course, with the dock. It also is going to be able to use it will have a built-in program that you can use to make Game Boy music directly from like the Game Boy's
crazy
sound
hardware. Yeah, exactly. There's also I do want to mention this because this gets downplayed. It does have a lot of buttons, so it has more than enough buttons to play any of the systems here. So it has like the typical 4 face buttons. So if you actually were missing that when you had a Game Boy Advance, some people will say that's actually like one of the design flaws of the Game Boy Advance, was that it had two face buttons and 2 shoulder buttons, but it really could have used 4 face buttons. This has 4 face buttons, and you'll be able to map the shoulder buttons to them.
Nice.
So this has 4 face buttons, a D-pad, a start, and a select button. It also has 2 shoulder buttons, very similar to the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, very nice.
On the back of it, where the controller port is, and it also has like a home button, like just in case you need to get back to the main menu.
Sure.
So that in itself is really cool. It has a rechargeable battery, of course, and it has a form factor that can accommodate any of the Game Boy stuff.
A rechargeable battery is very useful for for the Game Gear stuff, I would imagine. You don't have to spend like 16 like C batteries or whatever the hell.
Oh, yeah. Sure. This will be amazing, and there's also one thing that is also getting overlooked. So they are putting a second FPGA core that is solely meant for fan development.
Oh, nice.
So there are 2 FPGA cores in this, which is what allows it to replicate the circuit boards of all these old systems, and that's why it's so accurate. It has a second one put in there specifically for fan development. So you can expect fans, at least fans, to crack this wide open and put things like a NES core or a Super Nintendo core or whatever.
Actually, here's a really esoteric question.
Go for it.
You know how the GameCube has some ability to connect with the Game Boy Advance,
yes.
like with Crystal Chronicles?
Mm-hmm.
Would this work with that? Could you plug this into a GameCube?
That's a good question. So one thing that they haven't, to my knowledge, commented on is how multiplayer would work.
Okay.
As far as I can tell, this
true. You
has
have, like,
no
a link
cable
cable.
port. This has no link cable port, which means it would be incompatible with all of the GameCube
Pokemon.
stuff. Yeah, all of the GameCube stuff that you could think of. And it will also be incompatible with playing 2-player games with another, pocket. So, Analogue pocket. So my guess is that it probably has a wireless... it may have a wireless thing built in, or maybe they're just forgetting about that. Like who wants to play? Who's going to find another person with one of these, like basically things made for a fan? And Lotus and I are going to play, old timey Tetris together, even though we could play it all some other way. That's probably my guess, but that would be a shame, considering. The Neo Geo games in particular really sing in 2-player mode because they're mostly fighting games. Plus there are a fair amount of games, in the Game Boy ilk and also the Game Boy, the Neo Geo Pocket Color that have trading involved, Pokemon-esque stuff.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to hear what they have to say. I'm guessing there's a solution because even though they haven't mentioned it, Analogue usually prides themselves in supporting esoteric functions of their systems. Like even the Analogue NT Mini had microphone support.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. That's interesting
Famicom.
for like 2 or 3 games in the entire system, and like they're all Japanese only.
Yeah, they really haven't. They've really just shown mock-ups of these things, to my knowledge. So, I
don't think pre-order's even up yet.
No, it isn't. It's just to get everybody excited.
Mm.
More than likely, I don't know. And they're gonna have wireless controller solutions also that hook up to the hub. Let me see here. The screen is 1600 by 1440, which is insane.
That was the 1440. Yeah, that resolution's ridiculous.
That can handle basically anything cartridge based that you can.
Oh yeah, it's more than enough.
Yeah, you can have Super Nintendo games on there, no problem, if somebody makes a core for it. So to my knowledge, it is only shipping with the ability to play the Game Boy line games. So it will have the...
Yeah, the other stuff is adapters.
Yes, exactly. So the Link stuff and the Game Gear stuff and the Neo Geo Pocket Color stuff will be playable later, but here's my guess. My guess is that the jailbreak will allow you to play those things on just ROMs without the use of the adapters. So I wouldn't worry too much about those adapters coming out because some people are a little worried because the adapters for the Mega SG still haven't come out except for the Master System one that it shipped with.
Yeah, that does kind of bug me because it's like now we have this Pocket thing with the Game Gear adapter, and we haven't even gotten the other Game Gear adapter.
Yeah, but the jailbreak allows you to play all those. So I mean,
my thing with that though is that like if you just want to jailbreak and play ROMs, then just like do what everyone on the internet says and use a Raspberry Pi. Like the whole novelty with these things is you get to put the old games in a new system.
Yeah, but these are way more accurate than those than a Raspberry Pi emulator. Way more accurate. This is
Not
like a
as
one-to-one.
tasty, though.
What's that?
Yeah, not nearly.
Not as delicious though.
I'm not a big fan of raspberries. I hate it when somebody gives me the raspberry.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I'm not a Raspberry Pi has good options, but this is another class on its own. This is a hardware simulation, not software emulation like before. This is a hardware simulation, so it's 1-to-1 or even better than the original hardware in a lot of respects. So this is a huge deal for me. I was not excited about this thing until they revealed that stuff. This will also unless you want special features like borders and things like that, this will eliminate the need to use a GameCube.
Well, actually,
for this purpose.
Speaking of borders, though, that's actually one thing I'm very curious about. It would be really cool if they had like a Game Boy Color setting and a Game Boy Advance setting, so you could actually do the Super Game Boy look if you put Game Boy Color games in there.
Well, Game Boy Color games were never
regular Game Boy
were
games.
never a part of the what was supported for the Super Game Boy.
Well, the Super Game Boy 2, I guess, took them, but that never came out here.
No, it didn't.
Did it really not?
No, only the crossover titles. So there were.
Oh, okay.
There were titles that could be played in black and white or color. Those titles would have worked.
Okay.
Like for instance, Tetris DX.
And obviously Conker's Pocket Tales.
But
sure.
There were.
It actually would too.
But there were plenty of other titles that were like Metal Gear Solid, for instance, Ghost Babel. Yeah. It had the clear, all the ones with the clear cartridges were color only.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is though, it would be really cool if they had a Super Game Boy setting, so you could have your Game Boy game with the Super Game Boy look, or just have it upscaled or whatever if you were to put it in like a. Or not upscale, but like or have it if you were to put it in a Game Boy Color. And by the way, agree. This is really esoteric, and I don't think anybody would give a shit about this. But it would also be cool if you could set it to Game Boy Color, and then try loading a regular Game Boy game in, so you could get that unique error screen for each game. That's like, you need to. Oh no, I don't know. If you put a Game Boy, what was it? If you put a Game Boy Color game in a regular Game Boy, it'd be like, this doesn't work or whatever.
So, it's my thought that Kevchris tends to have like auto settings. He's the designer of these FPGA cores, but will allow you to probably pick what mode you'd want to force. So, for instance, a game like Shantae, for instance, was a Game Boy Color only game. Yeah. However, if you by the point that it came out, it had extra a little extra thing if you played it on a Game Boy Advance. I am sure that you could probably force a GBA to play in Game Boy Color mode with this thing.
That really would be actually really cool, because there's stuff that you could not possibly see except for if you own multiple original Game Boy style systems.
Mm-hmm. What I also like about this is that it is shaped and has like the appearance similar to a Game Boy Pocket or a Game Boy Color. So it has kind of that oblong look. So what's neat about this is that Kirby's Tilt and Tumble is unique in that it was made. It's a motion game, so you move the system like you would like a labyrinth game, and you tilt the system in order to move Kirby like a ball. It was made specifically for that form factor to make it feel like the game had like the balance for it with that shape. It doesn't play nearly as well on a Game Boy Advance, for instance, like the original Game Boy Advance. So it's pretty cool that you could do that. It's pretty neat. All in all, I'm very excited for it. I'm going to purchase it right away. Lotus is probably going to wait until the dock comes out, which is going to be a separate purchase.
The dock.
Yeah.
Even then, it would be more for a novelty than anything else. Like there are two things that I'm interested in: the Neo Geo Pocket Color and the convenience to not have to run a GameCube through a FrameMeister. But I already have. Like, I could do the Game Boy stuff right now anyway, though.
Sure. Well, there's some actually pretty fun Lynx games, but not nearly as good as the Neo Geo Pocket Color games.
Lynx, I have to look up stuff about that.
It's okay. I don't know anything about anything you just said, so.
Fair enough. So we'll move on. Just a couple little things here. One of the better Japan-only Dreamcast games called Napple Tale. It's like kind of a 2.5D platformer that's really charming and a lot of fun. Got a fan translation finally.
That sounds super familiar. Do you mind if I Google that?
Go for it.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, you're probably thinking Maple Story, but
no, I've seen this already. I've seen that once with like the girl with like the rose skirt.
Yeah, Napple Tale is one of the games that if you were a Dreamcast fan, you knew about because it was one of the games that everybody wanted to import. The system had died by that point in the US, so we never got a copy of it. But it's really cool that it got fan translated. So romhacking.net has that up on their website right now. And I really want to try it. I heard it was good, and I heard it was very charming, but it's even better now that I can understand it. So next one, this was actually pretty cool. So the background behind this is that Platinum Games, formerly of Capcom and Team Clover, Hideki Kamiya, resident Twitter badass. He grabbed a Guinness World Record in the Arcade Archives version of Ninja Kid, which is a Jalico game that got put up on there.
Hey, you know what else is a Jalico game?
Go for it. Come on.
Fakafon, what am I thinking of?
Windjammers.
That's a good guess. That's our kind of thing to talk about, but no.
That was Data East.
Oh, sorry.
Everyone's
Get your old
game.
stupid, old weird companies right.
Yeah, Juggernaut, obviously.
Juggernaut.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite game.
Why did you have to bring that up?
Because Jalico. How could you not bring it up? It's the centerpiece of Jalico's collection.
Yeah, sure.
So all of these games have all the arcade archives have what's called a caravan mode, which means that it's basically a recreation of the rules for like the original Star Soldier games. They were played in a contest style environment where you could go to like a special event and earn a top prize for competing in high scores. And so they have a caravan mode on this game, and it got certified Guinness World Record. So really, really cool stuff. That also means that the arcade archives versions of games are accurate enough to constitute as such. So really, really cool. And it's also cool that a famous person is holding that record.
Does he also hold the record for number of blocked Twitter users? He has to.
He's up there. He's up there.
Did you ever see the video? There's a YouTube video where this guy does like really like deep research to the best of his ability to find answers to esoteric questions. One of them was like, just how many Twitter users has Kamiya blocked? Is there a way to find this out? And he actually flew to Japan to go to a convention where he knew Kamiya would be, and found a con translator and asked if he could like show him his block list just to show the number. It was like, oh my, it was something like 4,000. It was like outrageous.
He agreed to it.
Not bad.
Yeah, he was like, he was
Not
sitting
at
right there. It's like, yeah, sure. He'd probably have blocked him in real life if he could have, but he couldn't. So it's like, here you go, I'll show you the number.
He's one of those internet badasses that's a lot more
it's so
polite
funny
in real life.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, Hideki Kamiya, when's Scalebound coming out? Blocked. And he'll post, blocked. And your ass is fucking blocked. It's amazing.
Well, Scalebound is still in development.
No, I know, but like one of his,
good.
like I think somewhere on his Twitter profile, it's like he gives like a brief fact, and he's like, "Don't ask me these fucking questions." And if you do, it's like blocked.
Damn,
that's amazing. Well, along with that vein, they kind of use this as a springboard to kind of to get out the word that they are in the process of making an Okami sequel, which is really, really neat. So Platinum Games, for anybody who doesn't know, is kind of the successor to a section of Capcom that used to make some of their coolest games, if you ask me. So, all of the people that made all the really cool Capcom games were part of Clover's studio.
God Hand, baby.
Yeah, they made God Hand. They made the Beautiful Joe games.
They did Anarchy Reigns, right? Because that had heavy God Hand callbacks.
No, Anarchy Reigns has a Bayonetta in it, so it would be a Platinum game.
Heavy God Hand reference.
Yeah, but it's a Platinum game. It's not a Clover game.
Platinum Clover no longer existed, though.
Correct. So they all transitioned to Platinum and made their first game, which I believe was Bayonetta. And which fits right in because it had the creator of Devil May Cry.
To the point where they like made direct Devil May Cry references. Yeah. So Platinum is great. They all their games are at least a lot of fun. If a couple of them are a little on the shallow side, but most of them are amazing. Yeah, you buy them for the gameplay and you pretty much know what to expect when you get them. Just crazy shit all the time.
Yeah, their licensed games tend to be a little less polished, but that's okay. At
the same time,
they tend to be pretty good.
Like, yeah, it's like I've always wanted to see the Ninja Turtles in this like insane style of gameplay. Like, okay, here you go. Or Transformers. Like, all right.
Yeah. They also have the Legend of Korra is the third one that they made.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So they're more popular. I don't even know if you'd call this a licensed game. I guess it might be, but Rising Revengeance.
Okay, yeah. So they were the lead developer on that. They helped out Kojima and Konami make that one. They've made a ton of great games though. Astral Chain is their newest game, and that's a very popular game.
I don't know how that actually plays, but I hear it's very good.
Yeah, it plays similar to Pikmin.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a Pikmin-esque game, except each character has an ability, which is pretty cool. Really, really cool stuff. Okami is probably the best game made by Clover. I would say it's the most complex game made by Clover before they closed. So it was very similar to maybe like a Zelda game.
It's very similar to Okami Den.
Fuck out of here. This is an actual sequel. That's kind of like a mini side or something.
It was like, okay. So finally, with an Okami sequel, I could see what happened after the events of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom.
Which is the last time Amaterasu showed up, right? The wolf that you played as, right?
I think you could play as Amaterasu. I remember the final boss was like apparently Okami's final boss. I know basically nothing about Okami at all, except that I was like, what is this final boss? Is it new for Tatsunoko vs. Capcom? No, it's apparently Okami's final boss. Like, all right.
Yeah. Okami was really beautiful. It was done in the Japanese ink art style,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
pretty
It
cool.
was really
I got
pretty.
it on PS4, but in doing so, I'm missing the ability to do the Wiimote, like write the stuff yourself. You know,
I mean, the original version of the game didn't have that either.
It was on
I mean,
PS2.
it was on PS2, so you're not missing much.
and so I have the true version, but better. That's what you're saying.
But better.
Take
Jesus.
that, Wii users.
But yeah, just it's cool that they're entertaining making a sequel. They should get their other shit done first, though. I mean, they have Bayonetta 2 that still or Bayonetta 3 that still needs to be released. So
Something's happening, even if it's
So Bayonetta was a big Sega love letter. Bayonetta 2 was a
Yep.
big Nintendo love letter. Do you think Bayonetta 3 is going to crash and burn and be picked up by Microsoft and complete the Trinity?
no, it's going to be a TurboGrafx 16.
Oh, wow. Every single joke in the game, nobody will fucking get except for you.
That's amazing.
Oh, hey, it's that game whose title Lotus already forgot what it is. I know that reference.
Wow. The only game I know for Turbo 16 is like Splatterhouse, and that's about it.
That's true.
That's
there's
a good
also there's also Castlevania Rondo of Blood and
yeah.
That's the most
the
significant
one that
game.
came like the Super Mario World. You know, it comes packaged with every single game. That Keith Courage.
Oh boy, you can't using that's one of the worst games for the system too.
I know, but it's like the pack-in title. There's also one of the Bonk games which actually look quite good.
All of the Bonk games are great. All of them.
They're very weird, though.
Oh yeah,
they are out there.
There's one where like you power up and turn into a woman. That's
Nice. I
I
love
just
it.
like when you scream something and then your words take physical form and you ride the words.
yes, that's
Yeah.
fun too.
Why
That's
not?
a very Japanese thing.
So
Yeah.
you can in that game you do like a flip and then like aim your head down, but
Yeah.
you can also like keep doing that in the air and slow your descent. Like and they meant for you to be able to do that. It's an actual
Nice.
game mechanic. It's
Nice.
pretty fun. But anyway, really cool stuff. I would never in a million years think that Okami would get like an official sequel made by its original makers. So that's really, really cool. Next one was that Nicholas, everybody's favorite video game company, basically confirmed that Binding of Isaac was going to get the same updates that the PC was going to get.
Finally Afterbirth Plus.
Yeah, I don't know when that's coming out, but soon.
It's already been like a couple of years anyway
What do you mean?
since Afterbirth Plus came out.
Oh no, Afterbirth Plus is on there already. This is the final update. I think that they're.
Oh, okay. All right. I was
Oh,
like,
to
geez.
keep it up to date with the PC. Okay.
No. The one that has like that fan that originally fan made mod that
like,
they're adding
what's,
to
what's
it.
called the booster packs, I suppose.
No, the booster packs are already there.
Oh.
No, there's a new Binding of Isaac thing coming out. I just forget what it's called. Old Man
I'm
Stompy confirmed about.
Totally
I should
blanking
know
on that
this.
too.
Was it like Resurrection or Retribution or something?
So yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me look it up real quick because that's gonna.
Is that even out at all yet, though? I don't think it is.
No, it's not out, but they're
Okay.
confirming that it is coming.
Okay.
And
So-
also
to
to consoles. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So
There goes another 300 hours of my life.
Oh no, please. You gotta stop this, Lotus. There's a point
Well,
in your
I
life.
did, but then they're making another fucking game.
There's a point in your life where you gotta say enough. I've played enough of the game. It's
Well, I
like
yeah,
did.
it's
when I
called
was playing,
Repentance.
it's like when one of my friends was playing Vindictus, and he had to stop, man, because he spent so much time on this game. It was ridiculous. At some point, he almost needed an intervention. It was that bad.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Repentance
That's okay.
is coming.
Repentance.
Yeah.
Man, I
So-
wonder where the plot's gonna take you that time. I can only imagine.
Yeah. So that's cool. Let's see here. What else? Okay. So take this with a big, huge grain of salt. Like, the saltiest thing you've ever tasted, even if you've eaten a whole bowl of salt.
Yeah, whole heaping bowl of salt.
Mm.
This is something I want. Probably very much something that Lotus wants. So the PS5 has a substantiated rumor from somebody who has leaked verified information before on Twitter. Forgive me for not getting the name, but they are saying that the PS5 will be backwards compatible with the entire PlayStation library.
Yeah, that'd be
PlayStation
interesting.
1,
That would be
PlayStation
good.
2, 3, 4,
So
and
that means
5.
it'll accept discs.
Yes, it's supposed to be native.
Okay.
Oh,
That is
wow.
what the rumor is.
But how could that be? The PS3 couldn't do that. The PS4 didn't try. Like, isn't the PS2 like impossible to? Well, I guess unless they build a PS2 inside it, like they did with the PS3.
That's probably what they're gonna do, right?
They might put an FPGA in it. Who knows? Just like they did with all the analog stuff.
Oh, that'd be
So
interesting. I would certainly like. My problem though is that like, but will it play like foreign discs? Still no. Like, son of
probably
a
not.
bitch.
Probably not. Yeah. So keep in mind, your PS4 can play PlayStation 2 games right now, just not the discs. So
That's
it
true.
does have a working PlayStation 2 emulator. It does have a working PlayStation 1 emulator if it needs to use it.
You could buy Eternal Ring on PS4.
You can buy anything else too.
No, you can't.
Just
but
Eternal Ring.
Well, yeah, Eternal Ring is up for sale.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't play PlayStation 1 games, but so my guess here is that it probably doesn't accept discs in reality, because the major point of putting all that work into making sure this has emulators for all of those past systems, which probably the PS3 emulator alone would be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
It runs off of an architecture that is unique. It runs off of the cell processor, which no other thing in existence runs off of. So,
Oh boy.
it is not a pipe dream to have a PS4 game run on a PS5 because they're all PowerPC
Yeah, I
architecture.
heard the structure was rather similar. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
I remember were complaining that the PS4 couldn't play PS3 games, but they were built entirely differently.
PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 are also proprietary as well. PlayStation 2 has the Emotion Engine, I think is what it's called, and PS1 just has its own PS1 thing. Now, it is not far-fetched to think that PS2 and PS1 games will be playable on this thing. I absolutely believe that, but I don't believe it will allow you to play discs because they'll want you to buy these games again and be able to play those classics, which I'm okay with. Obviously, I would want that ability to play all of these things off of a disc because I own them all still. And I also want to play games that have never had a re-release or will have a chance in hell in getting a re-release. Like
Siren 2. I'm still
Ghost Head.
waiting. It's been like 10 years. Ghost Head, my favorite game, yeah. Jesus Christ.
Even Lotus didn't have much patience for that game.
Like, at least Juggernaut, like, you read the guide, it tells you to do this, and you're like, okay, I'll do that. It's slow and fucking boring, but, like, you know what to do when you do it. Clock Tower is like, well, what if we made it annoying?
Oh.
I will be very, very surprised if this has any PS3 integration at all. I think it will play PS4 games. So I would be very, very, very happy if this happened. Mostly because PlayStation's official emulators are very, very good. They are almost indistinguishable from their real hardware counterparts. So playing a PS2 game on a PS4 is not a bad experience in the slightest. It's quite good, in fact. If I could get rid of all of my previous PlayStation games, I would be very happy. Or all my previous PlayStation hardware and not need to mod it to get an HDMI signal out of it.
No.
My PS2 and my PS1. I mean, I have a backwards compatible PS3, but that's a ticking time bomb. Like those systems are not built to last. So like a PS5, every PS5 having that ability would be amazing. I just don't. I think it's improbable. I would take this one with a grain of salt and cheer a whole hell of a lot when it actually happens, because and I would be even more happier if I could play Japanese titles as well. But I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm particularly excited about the idea of it being able to accept PS4 discs. That's cool. Just so like you could skip the PS4 Pro entirely.
Yeah, I think that is another major thing. I think it will have that ability, and I think that's very probable.
Like, I want to be able to put in Neo, or, I mean, I don't play this one, but Monster Hunter World, and, like, not have to select graphics or frame rate.
Yeah, there are plenty of games now that have a Pro mode. And
Pro enhanced on the box.
They're much better in Pro mode. I think Horizon Zero Dawn has a Pro mode as well.
Probably.
Yeah, so I would love to play some of the best PS4 games in their best in their best version without having to get the stopgap hardware, which is the Pro. I love it when a system can completely supplant the other. It very rarely happens. Pretty much the Wii U is one of the only times it's ever happened. The Game Boy Advance, that was something, but very very few times has a new system completely supplanted the old one and allowed you to play like almost everything.
It just made like the old one obsolete.
The PS2, yeah, exactly.
Even the regular Wii, kind of, if you don't count like the Game Boy Player. The regular Wii pretty much wrote out the GameCube, except for like literally one game, like the memory transfer. No, yeah, never mind. Yeah, it still took GameCube memory cards.
Sure.
So yeah, it just overwrote the GameCube.
Yeah, except for the GBA stuff, which is actually what I've always wanted out of it. So it's actually kind of funny now that like actually now I can get rid of my GameCube. With this analog system coming out. So, yeah. I mean, I think this new analog system is going to be really great, and it will be even more accurate than the Game Boy with the Game Boy player on the GameCube. So, anytime when I can remove a piece of hardware from my entire wall of hardware that I need to hook up to this gigantic thing that I have set up, I'll be very happy. So
and come to think of it, the PS2 overwrote the PS1 as well, unless you're going into like weird foreign game territory. But as far as buying stuff at the store, the PS1 was just completely overwritten. Yeah,
and that's a great thing too. I mean, if it weren't for imports, I would say that the like weird hobbyist stuff in which I still want my original hardware for those things. Who knows? But there's also fan translations as well that it pays to have an original PS1
well, yeah, I have all 4 PlayStation systems, even though like it feels weird to do that, considering that like but I gotta play Kingsfield 1 on the PSIO, so like that justifies the whole PS1 system.
Now, this wasn't mentioned in the rumor, but it would also be really cool if there were PSP and Vita possibilities here too. So
if they could overwrite the PS TV,
that would be fantastic. But basically, a lot of people have digital versions of PSP games bought. It would be really neat to be able to play them on a system finally, with that people wanted. Well,
yeah, like if they could take Vita games and just give you 6-axis support, so you could do the tilt controls for the Vita, that would be amazing. Because like, I don't see why the PS TV doesn't have that, but that would make Uncharted Golden Abyss playable.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to do a marooned episode on the Vita, just because that's pretty interesting. There's quite a few either like exclusive titles for the Vita or best versions on the Vita that are really really good. So I would like to do that sometime, like kind of like what we did with the Wii U last episode of CoreCon. But we need to move on to another subject, but this is an interesting one for sure, and we will be reporting on this as time goes on. One of my favorite recent shmups is getting a DLC pack, which is Rolling Gunner, which is made by an old school shmup developer, and it was made originally as a doujin title, or a Japanese indie title, and was only sold at like Comiket on a disc. It eventually got an official Western and world release on the Switch. It sold so well that he is working on a DLC package called Overpower.
Nice.
So I'm very happy about that. It will probably... he hasn't confirmed what it is, but it's my guess that he's adding levels and maybe more ships. So that would be really cool. Moving on from that, there's also... this is pretty cool. Classic Sonic was revealed as a playable character for Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. This is shaping up to be one of the best Monkey Ball games, which is really awesome. It's going to include a lot of the mini games from the original two games that people have a lot of great multiplayer nostalgia for.
But will it have Dole branding?
Probably not. But,
all I remember about these games is me being terrible at them.
Those games are brutal.
They're brutal, but they're a lot of fun, and the mini games are probably second only to Melee as one of the most well regarded multiplayer experiences on the GameCube.
Nice.
And Double Dash too, probably. But this is one of the games that and it's kind of funny that it was like a third party game, because a lot of people played that Monkey Target. It was like a big thing. People played it in college, like all the time. So and people still talk about it. So even people that don't play a lot of video games played Monkey Target. So pretty cool. Moving on from that, going along with our retro emulation kind of stuff, Arcade 1-Up, which is a series of it's a company that makes consumer grade arcade cabinet replicas that you could buy at like Walmart and things like that. They got really popular over the holiday season. They have been actually coming forward with a lot of really cool stuff. Like they're making a Ninja Turtles one with both Ninja Turtles arcade games on it, like the Konami one, and it's going to be 4-player too, and it'll look like the original Turtles the arcade game style marquee and all that stuff. Really cool stuff. Apparently they have had some complaints about quality and build quality and things like that, and they've actually been improving, which is actually pretty neat. But apparently their most recent one is amazing, and that is Atari Star Wars. Have you guys seen this one in the arcade?
No, never. I don't think so.
I'm not 100% sure. When I think of really old arcade Star Wars, I think I'm thinking the wrong one. Like, I'm thinking like the 32X game.
Okay, so this is the 32X game was the Sega game made after this one. So Atari Star Wars was a vector-based game, so it looked kind of like Tempest. It had color vector graphics, but it was a lot of fun. The entire game was basically the trench run in the original Star Wars, and also going across the Death Star, shooting the towers.
You take care of those fighters. I'll take care of the tower.
So,
or I'll worry about the tower.
It's a visually stunning game, and it's a lot of fun. Every time I see it in an arcade and it's actually working, I love playing it. And they give you a pretty cool flight yoke, and you get to, of course, do the trench run, and it does a loop where Fakafon. Anyway,
what? Are you serious? Give me a second there.
You do a loop where you go through the tower levels and the trench level over and over again, and they get progressively harder, like a lot of old arcade games do. But it's particularly visually stunning because when you get to the end of the trench, you get to shoot the proton torpedoes. So and it'll do like a really cool bloom effect that you can only really do with vector graphics.
Yeah. Are you talking about like when you blow up the asteroids in Mindstorm?
Yeah, it's very similar to that, but it's really cool. You have to see it. It layers all of the vector shapes, and it's very bright and visually stunning. Even by today's standards, it still looks cool, and
Yeah.
and
Well, 'cause you just
that's
don't see it
very
anywhere
impressive.
else.
Exactly, it's just a really cool looking effect. They apparently have replicated the aesthetics of this game better than MAME.
Nice.
With the arcade 1-up. Not only that, but it also includes its 2 sequels, the Empire Strikes Back vector game, which is less common because it is an upgrade kit for the original game. And I think you do the snow speeder stuff in that one. And it also includes the even rarer Return of the Jedi game that Atari made, which is a lot different. It's like an isometric sprite-based game. But I didn't see that happening. So, really cool stuff. Apparently the build qualities are very good, and it looks really neat. It looks like the original arcade cabinet. It's a really cool-looking thing to have. This might be the one arcade 1-up thing that I would want. Personally, because I mean most of the games they've put out have either have been emulated officially, and those emulations have been better than what they've come up with. But this is like an actual showpiece, you know what I mean? And it also has all the Star Wars marquee stuff all over it, and like the actual thing is very aesthetically pleasing. Plus, it has a unique flight yoke, and when I look at like arcade ownership, if I'm going to start buying arcade machines, I would want something that's very hard to replicate outside of emulation. And that flight yoke is part of the experience that I can't replicate on my own. It's just something I can't do. A Tempest machine would be really neat because I normally don't have a spinner for anything that I play games on. Besides, the original Atari has a spinner. The Famicom has one, but something cool. And this is a unique control method, so it's really neat. So apparently they've been the nerds have been talking about this, and they're actually really impressed by it, whereas they've been kind of lukewarm on arcade 1-ups stuff up until now. So really cool, and that opinion's genuine because they're gonna keep slamming something if they can. So, last couple things here. Ninja Saviors is finally available on Switch and PS4, I believe.
Yeah, I got my copy.
Yeah, I got my copy as well on Switch. You got yours on PS4?
Yep. Oh, actually, did you get a physical copy on Switch?
No.
I was gonna say I heard that the
eShop
physical
version.
copy on Switch, the manual's controls are like the PS4 controls, like X and square and stuff. It's like,
oh, what a terrible mistake. But I bet the corrected version will be worth money because you'll probably have to send in for that. But Ninja Saviors is an awesome remake of the Natsume Taito game from that era. It's the second one that Tengo Project has made after the Wild Guns Reloaded that they made.
Yeah.
Both of these games were amazing back then and are very pricey in the aftermarket.
Yeah.
And both of their remakes are better than the originals. There's no reason to go back to the old one other than to own the cartridge.
Yeah.
Because both of these games are really, really freaking good. The extra content that they added and the quality of life stuff is really, really good. Have you had a chance to play it yet, Lotus?
Not really. I've had quite a bunch of grading to do.
Okay.
Plus, this is the kind of thing I think I probably want to stream.
It's a really fun game. It's very challenging, very difficult, but it is very rewarding and a lot of fun.
Well, that's those old Natsume games in a nutshell. They're freaking awesome, but you're gonna get your money's worth. You're gonna get your ass kicked.
They're probably easier multiplayer.
Yeah.
Especially Wild Guns.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, Wild Guns is very difficult.
Like, if you watch Wild Guns being played, it's very easy to say, like, how'd you not see that bullet coming? But when you're playing it, no
when you're
way,
playing
man.
it yourself, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen these games, Fakafon?
Just Wild Guns.
Oh, okay, so you know that it has a gorgeous art style. Ninja Saviors has a very similar gorgeous art style.
Nice.
Yeah, and it also kind of revels in that like robot like
everyone's
aesthetic
a robot,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's a robot in both games, including like people that you didn't think were robots.
Because why not?
Yeah, whenever anybody explodes, they turn in, they're revealed as a robot, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
They also revealed that Tengo Project is teased a third remake recently, and I have no idea
it's gotta
what this
be
is.
some form of Tulip where everyone's a robot.
Well, Tengo Project is not the makers of Tulip. They're the ones that are making Moon, but
but Tulip's a Natsume game, and it's weird and esoteric.
yes,
so why not?
But yeah, nah.
I want to play a game where you try kissing people.
I can recommend it to you.
That's
not out loud in this podcast.
Yeah.
My guess is that it's Operation Thunderbolt. I think that's what it's called. Because I think that's the only other game that those guys made. If I'm, I think it's called Operation Thunderbolt. It is. Give me a quick second. Operation Thunderbolt. It's for SNES. Yeah. So this is kind of a sequel to Operation Wolf. If you ever played that game, like back on the NES, it's like one of the
top down shooter.
It's a light gun game.
Light gun game, shit. I'm not thinking of the right one.
Yeah. It's the sequel to Operation Wolf. So I don't think this is a likely candidate, though. It's the only other one that I think that team made back then. But there could be something that I just don't know. And because this game was compatible with the Super Scope and the SNES mouse, it is not as good as the other two games. It's just a kind of a shooting gallery kind of game, and like to put the kind of care that they put into the other two remakes for this game would be kind of weird. So I really don't know what this third game could be. It's kind of wigging me out a little bit because Wild Guns and Ninja Savior are both a lot of fun. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. Designer Shunichi Taniguchi was on Wild Gun, so I don't know. Maybe I can do a little research and find out what other games this guy's made, because he made Ninja Warriors, Pocky and Rocky 2, Wild Guns, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Fighting Edition. Ooh. And Gundam.
Was that the SNES game or the Genesis game? Oh no, the Genesis game was like a Gundam remake or something.
So, no, this is you were actually correct with that. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the Fighting Edition for Super Nintendo, is actually a localized Shin Kado's Seki Gundam Wing Endless Duel reskin. So,
It was just like the most difficult and broken boss in like fighting game history.
Yeah, so my money is probably on Pocky and Rocky 2, but
that'd be awesome.
That would be really cool. Because that's a Natsume game.
And Power Rangers, like, man, I'm not kidding. Ivan Ooze is like SNK Final Boss hard.
But that's the beat 'em up game. This is the fighting.
No, I'm talking the fighting game. He is some
he's
bullshit.
In that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, there might be two fighting games. I think there's like the movie The Fighting Game or something. I don't know. There is a Super Nintendo fighting game that has Ivan Ooze as the final boss, or at least I think he's the final boss, and he's like ridiculously hard.
I love the cover to this game. It's the Megazord punching Lord Zed in the face.
Nice. I think
So
I remember
great.
that.
Yeah. R.I.P. Lord Zed. The guy who
Yeah,
played him
that
has
guy was
passed away
great.
recently. So let's move on. So I did want to quickly say that Sega Ages Columns 2 and Ichidan are available. Ichidan R in particular is special because it has a rare English release of that game on included. I think there are something like less than 10 known cabinets of that game
Oh well.
in the U.S.
Okay.
So something crazy like that. I have not played either yet. I know how Columns plays. I kind of bought it just to be loyal and to support the Sega Ages franchise. But I bought Ichidan R because I'm actually curious. So I'm gonna report back on those, but I expect a lot of fun. And they also teased that Sega Ages Shinobi is coming, which is really cool.
What does that mean? Is that the arcade and Master System game?
Correct.
Okay.
So the original Shinobi game,
Because
the
I was
original
going to say
arcade
there are
Shinobi game.
when everyone says Shinobi, they probably are imagining Revenge of Shinobi, but there are only 2 games called Shinobi, and that's one of
There
them,
are
and the other is the PS2
3 or
game.
4. There are 3 or 4
that are actually just what are the others on like handhelds or something?
Okay, so there's Shinobi for arcade, and all of its ports.
Yeah, the Master System and
yeah, exactly, all of its ports. And then there's Shinobi for the PS2, like you said, and then there's the 3DS game.
Oh, there you go.
Also
wait a
called
minute.
Shinobi.
Was the Saturn game just called Shinobi?
No, that one actually has a subtitle.
Okay,
I forget what it's called.
Play that.
That one's actually surprisingly good for,
I just
a
want to
goofy
see, like, the mocap
digitized
goofiness.
game. Yeah. Apparently that game's a lot of fun.
Nice.
So yeah, and I think one last thing before we wrap things up, unless anybody else has any stuff to talk about.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Well, I will mention one thing, but it depends on what your last thing is going to be.
Okay, so my last thing was that this is something near and dear to my heart. Jeff Smith's Bone is getting a Netflix adaptation.
I've never read that, but I heard it was very, very good.
Oh, it's a ton of fun, dude. Not only is it a beautiful piece of art, but it's also really funny.
Yeah, so what Bone is it was an indie comic from the early 2000s. It was a really fantastic work, like on the level of Usagi Yojimbo, like a creator-owned property where
I was going to mention Usagi Yojimbo, but go ahead.
It's a creator-owned property where the creator got to do whatever he wanted and was able to get published, and its sheer quality propelled it into prominence rather than a big company being the head of it. It was never part of Marvel or DC or even I think it was it had its own label after a while. I think it was on Image for a bit, but it was creator owned. He did whatever he wanted, and he told the story that he wanted to tell, and then he ended it. And from start to finish, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It hits you in the feels. It also has some comic strip like qualities, even though it was a comic book. The characters, the main characters, are very similar to like a Calvin and Hobbes ish type of humor from back in the day, and they are in a more realistic world than where they're from.
Yeah, think like it's almost like Sonic in the more recent game, where you see those cartoon characters evolving in a real world.
Oh, like Sonic 06, like not the shitty quality, but like the graphical presentation.
The concept, not the
or Sonic Adventure. He's just walking around with normal humans, and he's like Mario Odyssey in New Donk City, where he's this goofy cartoon character, and everyone else looks like a normal human.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to if probably the way I'm going to describe it is, what if Steamboat Willie got lost in Fable, like the world of Fable, the video game Fable.
Yeah.
It's it's like that. So there's like a realistic, like humanoid world that has magic in it that these cartoon characters got stuck in. So it has a whole lot of heart, just like any fan of Calvin and Hobbes will love it. And it's very little kid appropriate, but also adult appropriate at the same time. It could have easily been a popular, movie or something like that. They could have made a movie out of it.
Actually, from what I'd heard, people had pitched the idea of making it like a cartoon series or something.
Yeah.
But apparently they were like treating it like a little kiddie product, and the guy's like, no, I don't want you to like bastardize my work. So he's been saying no to adaptation. So I guess he has faith in Netflix doing a good job with it.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
so.
it's a very despite its like kiddish leanings, it does have a mature outlook on things, and serious stuff does happen in it. The important stuff to get taken out of it would completely diminish the product's quality. Yeah. There's a lot of serious stuff that goes in. There's death in it. It is, and it doesn't shy away from those topics and how the characters have to deal with it. And it's very heartwarming at the same time, and it's one of the best comics I've ever read. So I have you can commonly find it as like an omnibus. Like the whole thing is easy to find. It's something I read in college. I absolutely recommend it to anybody.
Me too.
Young and old. Go ahead.
Yeah, me too. I recommend it to everybody too.
Yeah, I would say a child 8 and above would be very comfortable with it. It would be a really good introduction to the comic books to a lot of young people as well. It's just really, really good in general. Especially the only other thing that I can compare it to, maybe you know this, Fakafon, Hero Bear and the Kid. Do you know that one?
Oh my god, I've heard about it. Let me go check quickly.
So, Hero Bear and the Kid is similar to Calvin and Hobbes as well, but it is also a comic book, not a comic strip. What happens is he gets in his inheritance a stuffed polar bear with a cape on it, and the polar bear is actually a superhero. So it's pretty cool, and it's like the kid basically, fighting crime with his super polar bear. It's very heartwarming and a lot of fun.
I've heard about it, but I never actually seen it.
Really, really cool. The art style is really good. I think I forget the name of the guy who made it, but it's Mike Kunkel, I think. Is that correct? Yeah, Mike Kunkel. I actually have the comic right here. So anyway, really cool stuff. Anything else, guys?
Like semi-related, I was going to mention, and you yourself mentioned the name Usagi Yojimbo. My brother's gotten into reading a bunch of comics a few years ago, and he's, I think, actually caught up with Usagi Yojimbo now. I am a few issues behind, but I'm caught up on the big trade releases, and it's just like, it's a really brilliant read. It's about just a samurai in feudal Japan who's like a samurai who's not an asshole. He, like, even in universe, like every once in a while people are surprised by how like relatable he is to the common folk.
Nice.
He's not just going around being a dick. But there's like a whole bunch of stories that kind of like what you're saying about Vone, like it's usually charming enough that anybody could read it. It occasionally, when it decides to get serious, it can get serious. It's not gory or anything, even though tons of people get killed. Like they typically represent death with the guy just lying on the ground, and like it almost looks like a thought bubble, but it's like just a little skull in a thought bubble. It's like, nah, he's dead.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of really interesting characters, many of which are inspired from other media. Like there's a. I think it's a comic, or I forgot if it was a comic or it was a novel, but called Wolf and Cub, which is
Lone Wolf and the Cub.
Lone Wolf and Cub, like a samurai and his kid. So they have like goat and kid. It's like a goat and like a kid, which is a play on words. Besides, there's, instead of Zatoichi, the blind swordsman with an unconventional sword style. There's Zato Ino, because Ino means pig, so it's like a pig man who's blind, like that kind of thing. Usagi himself, Usagi means rabbit. Usagi Yojimbo is a rabbit. Like, the fact that these characters are animals almost never comes up. Like, it's very rare. This could have been all humans the whole time, but every once in a while you'll get like a dog guy who's like, I could smell him out, but usually that doesn't come up. It's just a really interesting set of reads, and it's been going on for something like, I think my brother said like 35 years. And This is another case where the creator, Stan Sakai, does everything himself. He's the artist, he's the writer, he's the letterer. Like, it's a one-man project, and he pumps these out quickly, which is amazing.
I can
and
confirm,
if you're
it's really hard doing that. It's really, really fucking hard. And if he's doing all of that by himself and quickly, he's a hero.
And quickly, and
not only that, but
quality.
he's also like managing the brand. Like, it's the only thing he produces, so he makes his living off of this, and he has since the early 90s.
Yeah, and he gets all sorts of praise from, like, in all the trades, they open up with praise from, like, various other people in the industry. Like, I forgot if it was Kevin Eastman or Peter Laird, but one of the Ninja Turtles guys, Stan Lee.
He actually guest starred on the original incarnation of the Ninja Turtles comic and television series.
I think I do
and I used to have
that.
the action figure
cameo.
for. Yeah, and I used to have the action figure for Usagi Yojimbo, which was like a Turtles figure at the time.
Nice.
Yep. So, like, not only, I guess they were able to do that because, you know, he was in a similar situation as Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird at the time. You know, he was
probably
he was an indie creator, and you know, he was able to broker a deal with them just to have fun. And,
like I think there was some issue where like just Leonardo goes into like, or no, where like Leonardo met Usagi, but none of the other turtles did, and they thought Leonardo was like hallucinating or something. And then you see like by magic, like Usagi gets summoned to like New York City, and everyone's like, "What? Who are you?" And like, you know, there's stuff like that. And like at one point, the turtles came into Usagi's universe, and they're like, "Wow, there really is just a whole world of just animal people in Japan." Is bizarre.
Yeah, I have the original volume of this, and I really wanted to get into it. I got distracted and haven't bought any more than that. But
it's freaking brilliant. But the reason I bring all of this up is that like, this was not me, this was my brother. But Baltimore Comic-Con just recently happened, and apparently, like, on top of all those cool things about Stan Sakai being like an amazing artist and writer and everything, he's apparently like a really laid back, like, chill guy who like has not had fame get to his head.
Are you
like
who is this guy? Is he a robot? That's not possible.
Right? Like, my brother met him at Comic-Con, got a picture with him, got an autograph. They did a couple doodles for him. It's crazy. Like, it's freaking amazing.
Okay, this guy has an incredible willpower, because you know how hard it is to
unreal.
do all of that as one person.
This guy's passion
and
is
make money
ridiculous.
off of it too. He's made money off of it since the very beginning. When all the chips were stacked against him, he didn't have like a big publisher or anything.
Yeah.
That is beyond amazing, dude.
Yeah, and the last trade he released, in fact, was a bunch of side stories, too. Like, there was, like, a whole War of the Worlds scenario in Usagi Yojimbo, so space aliens show up and just start killing off main characters, and you're like, oh, shit! Like, it's non-canon, so he can do whatever he wants, but it was, like, still really crazy to see. Like, how do you fight space aliens when, like, you know, in all the depictions of space aliens landing, you know, the military has trouble with it. Now it's like people are fighting with swords and bows and arrows. Like, what are you going to do? So it was pretty amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Really cool. This is something I would definitely want to do a topic on maybe later. Maybe like other indie stuff from like that era, like Cerebus is another one from that era.
About that too.
Yeah, the Eric Larson stuff like Savage Dragon was another indie project from that era.
It became an Image comic property, right?
Yes.
Eventually, but I think the whole thing about Image Comics was that everybody was allowed to keep their rights.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's why it was founded. It was founded by artists and writers that were disgruntled from the DC and Marvel.
Yeah.
Totally
system.
understandable.
Yeah. Especially since they've exploited their labor ever since their inception, both of them. They're lucky. The artists of a lot of the original, great comic book characters are lucky if they got credit. If typically the writers got credit for the creation of those characters, and the artist who drew them and conceptualized them and made their iconic looks never got co-creator credit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a thing.
Like Steve Ditko is lucky that he has a co-creatorship with Stan Lee, for instance, for Spider-Man.
Man, I don't know what it is about artists getting the shaft constantly in the 20th and 21st century.
It's what it is. I think a lot of it is like people don't respect you, and I'm saying you because you're an artist. People don't respect you because you've practiced it so much that you can whip it up really quickly. But that's because you've had years of training.
Well, it's like photographers. How hard could photography be? I have a camera, and it's like,
yeah,
you don't
it's
understand.
pretty hard. Yeah, when people try to go do like super pictures by themselves, like, oh yeah, good luck. It's not easy.
Yeah. How do you think those nature documentaries get made? It takes like years for some of them. But it's like, but they're just filming shit. It's like, okay, well, you do it. See how easy it is.
Go film the penguins, asshole. See how this works for you.
You know what? It's also my belief that a lot of artists are used to doing their art regardless of whether they get paid because they like it. It's their driving thing.
Yeah, that is very true.
That alone leaves leaves you open to be exploited.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and that happens with writers as well. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of free reviews that I've written for websites. And I should have gotten paid for them because the owners of those websites got paid for something that I wrote. Because they knew I would think it was fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know. I exactly know what you mean.
And I did think it was fun, but I should have been paid. I should have gotten ad revenue. They know that it's like GameStop. Hiring all these people that have expert level knowledge on video games that nobody else does, and they pay them like dirt.
$10 an hour. Yeah.
They pay them like dirt, but they know more about video games than anybody. They have an expert level, grasp on a subject that few people have, and they exploit it because they know, they love the environment.
And I think one thing that's very funny is sometimes it happens to a lot of my artist friends. They get commissions, and people are like shocked. They're like, "Oh my God, you're charging!" It's like, "Yeah, dumbass, I gotta work.
Yeah.
I gotta make money out of this.
Absolutely.
I need to pay my bills. I have a rent to pay. I have a roof. I have a bed. Like, geez.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't.
Absolutely.
I don't click my fingers and everything is there, and then I draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing is, also they a lot of the business people recognize that this has been exploited for a long time, so they're going to continue to try to exploit it because they know they can.
Yeah.
And that's the real big shame of it. They know that a lot of artists don't have steady work. They don't have they're paid on commission, or they're paid as contractors for a maybe a well-paying job, but then they won't know what to do after that. You know what I mean? They'll do like a really nice billboard, but then they won't have somebody come along with another really nice billboard for a really long time. A city commissioning you to do a mosaic on the side of a building, for pride of the city, but are you going to be doing that for 10 years?
Probably not.
Probably not. You're going to do your one mural and that's it, and you're going to get paid hopefully well for it, and then what are you going to do after that? You're going to be back to ramen. So it really sucks. And I have nothing but sympathy because I have tons of friends, including yourself, that are in this same mode. And honestly, in a way, I'm a content creator as well, and I don't get paid for any of this. In fact, I lose money on it.
That's true. Yeah.
I lose money on this. Lotus does tons of work that he gets a little bit of money for.
Minor ad revenue.
Yeah. You have Patreon. You both have Patreons.
Patreon pays way the hell better than YouTube does.
Yeah. Imagine that.
True.
You're the $5 that you get from your biggest fans is way more lucrative than the thing that should be paying you. That's ridiculous. It's
Yeah,
I could go on all day.
Yeah, we could go on, but let's stop there.
All right. Well, let's end the show there.
On a positive note, yay!
Yeah. Well, we had to bring that to light. So that is the show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages while there. Please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Thursdays for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, Battle.net, and Switch.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting involved in discussions with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me on YouTube under Fakafon. You can find my Twitter as Lou Fakafon, that's L-O-U-P. I have my webcomic, Kadrula.com, or you can find me on Webtoons as Kadrula-chan. And I also have my Patreon as Kadrula.
Oh, and one last thing, just a quick plug here. By the time this comes out, tomorrow, the 23rd, will be the release of Corpse Party 2.
Oh, hey!
Oh, yes. I'll have to look into that at some point.
So, the very last...
Lotus.
the very last game that Tom Lipschultz worked on before he left Xseed. And also a long-awaited sequel that a lot of people have been really fiending for. So it's going to be cool. All right, well, we will catch everybody on Thursday for an episode of Corrective Consciousness where we go into the weirdness of some games that we really, really love.
Until
Catch
next
you
time,
then.
everyone.
See you, everybody.
Bye.